Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Not Another Fucking Podcast. I don't know if you knew that was the name of it. and,
Actually, that's really funny because my forthcoming podcast is called the Notcast.
there we go. Some
No
synergies.
TC, so it means nothing's off the table.
That's great. I can't wait to listen to
When I
that.
get when I get round when I get round to it.
That's it. That's it. I mean, I just had to. I've been wanting to do this for years, really. But like in the
Yeah.
last couple of months, and then yeah, I was just like, no, I just need to do it. Stop, like trying to pre-prep and do too much. Yeah, that's basically it.
Talking about Henry, how long have we known each other now?
Since I think 2018, so quite a long time now.
Holy hell!
Yeah, yeah,
That was when I founded CryptoAM, I guess.
yeah, it was. So for everyone on this is James Bowater, and if you'd like, great. I'd like you to maybe just kind of introduce yourself, talk a little bit maybe about CryptoAM, where that all started, and then yeah, we can kind of go from there.
Okay, well, I mean, I think it's probably easiest just to give a very quick backstory on that one. Um, I think, God, I mean, I having been involved in anti-counterfeiting technology that I was trying to commercialize, which was this high-end hologram that was see-through. It was three-dimensional volume holograms. We were having a fourth, so that required three lasers to produce. The fourth laser that we were going to have was going to do alphanumeric codes. The film itself that we produced the holograms on was see-through, and so we had QR codes underneath. So you can see where I'm going with this. Is all of the elements that we all take for granted now within the digital asset space. Were actually part of my life. And one of the friends of mine that I had from those days was involved with a company called Atomic, which was Eric Pullier's thing. And he said, and I said, how's it going? So I was trying to raise capital, which in the UK, as you know, has always been a nightmare.
It's not the easiest.
Especially you're trying to commercialize a sensible, serious, technology.
Yeah,
And I was just getting absolutely fed up of going around cap in hand asking people for money to keep the thing going. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I was talking to a friend of mine who was working with Eric, and this was like I guess the first ICO phase in 2017, sort of thing, or
it
whatever.
was roughly 2017, I think, where they all kind of started.
He said something like, "Oh yeah, we raised $67 million," and I went, "What?" I was trying to raise 3 million quid, and I mean, it was like, what the hell? And then another guy I knew said, "Have you ever thought about, combining with blockchain?" I said, "I don't know what that is." It was just completely nuts. And this guy was working with N-Chain, which is where fake Toshi, Craig Wright.
Craig Wright, fake
Yeah,
sushi.
Lord Almighty takes us back. Anyway, so I suddenly
Yeah.
thought, God, and anyway, to put a pin in that, the company that I was trying to develop this stuff with, we ran out of runway, and it was just call it a day. But all this stuff had stuck in my head, and a friend of mine who I'd also been involved with in a different life called me up saying he found the best gold mine he had seen. He was a mining engineer and a tech guy. So best gold mine ever. It was on the border of Senegal and Mali, and it was like $600 an ounce cost of production, which, if you think about it,
Wow.
is, I know, and had a 40-year life of mine. I'm like, okay, all right. Well, how about we do it this way? So I came up with something called, we called it Vorium, which Aureus was the first minted gold coin back in Caesar's time. So Aureus, Aureate, Aureum sounded like Ethereum, V at the beginning for virtual. So Vorium, so that was cool. And the idea was to put together a network of mines, actual physical mines, with different products, different, base metals, precious metals, whatever, and do a basket of commodities,
Wow.
effectively. And effectively it was going to be an index coin, I guess.
Yeah, of all these separate commodities.
Yeah, exactly. And all, sort of lithiums and tungstens and gold and this, that, and the other, but having no single point of failure. And then you could also attract other minds to the party by, by sort of involving them in the network and all of this kind of stuff. And they had to be, have ESG at their forefront about, in other words, how do we make mining better and all of this sort of stuff. I mean, it was a really, really kind of a well thought out concept, especially in
17.
2017.
Yeah, because I mean, like right now, you hear a lot about real world assets, things like Ondo, and like trying to digitize and bring a lot of those things on chain. But like,
Well, I mean,
people have been trying to do it for years.
yeah, absolutely. So anyway, to cut a long, boring story short,
That's
we all know
interesting.
what happened. We all know what happened. I mean, it was just as we were going to go and raise the dosh, and the market spiked. If you remember,
Yeah.
Bitcoin went up to 20,000 or 21,000 or something like that, and then spectacularly crashed, and then everyone was going to jail for the ICOs anyway. So I thought,
Dodged a
lucky,
bullet.
lucky escape, But it therefore had exposed me to what is now what I know as our community, and I happened to be at an event weirdly launching a new Rolls-Royce coffee machine made by the Swiss company Jura. And this was at Boisdale in Canary Wharf, and I, as you know, I live in Canary Wharf, well, Isle of Dogs, and thought, okay, espresso martinis, excellent. And when I was there, I ran into my friend Harry Owen, who was at the time the COO of CryptoAM newspaper. And I said, look, I mean, I'm learning a lot and I'm meeting a lot of people. And I think, by the way, I wasn't that coherent.
I mean, enough espresso martinis. I don't think anyone is, right?
Yeah, I would just like, well, I'm involved in nanotechnology and I'm sort of stuff and this new thing called cryptographic currency and blah, 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 blah. Anyway. And that was actually, ironically, thinking about cryptographic currency, the first exposure I had to all of that, ironically, was in 2014, when some guys that I was working with to do, they were putting on the 30th anniversary of Live Aid and calling it the Festival of Hope. And then they created a white paper for the Hope Gold coin, which was going to be the gold standard of cryptographic currency. I ran in that guy. I can't remember. I mentioned this at Satoshi Round Table, and someone said, "God, I remember that dog shit project." And I'm like, okay, well, it had stuck in my mind, and that actually was the thing that led me to to do Boreum, but being a slightly different. So I was one of those real world asset backing something, as opposed to, I didn't really understand at that point digital scarcity and the sort of the true nature of Bitcoin and all that thing. Anywho, so look, I was at this event, and I said, look, people doing these blockchain and pizza and beer and blah. So I think it'd be quite good for the traditional financial audience of CryptoAM newspaper
To have a little taste of that.
to learn as it will learn with me as I went forward, and literally that was how it was. It was at a coffee machine event in Boisdale of Canary Wharf in, I think, February 2018, and then we and then obviously the crypto winter started kicking in earnest. So it wasn't exactly good. We were going to make any money. But it was we were the first mainstream publication in the world to feature digital assets, and then actually from day one I wanted to be AI, blockchain, and basically it was everything other than at the time fintech, which I think there was a sort of like an ownership thing within CryptoAM that people we can't have fintech as well, sort of thing. So that's fine. But it was like Internet of Things. Tokenization, DLT, all of the things that we talk about now, and obviously new acronyms have come along, but that was the launch pad, and So I think June the 18th, 2018, that was the first edition. And basically it was a double page spread that came out once a week in the newspaper. And it developed from there, and again, wanting to meet everybody, I started hosting the blockchain breakfast at Balthazar. I don't know. Did you ever come to
No,
one of
no,
those?
I never came to the blockchain breakfast at Balthazar.
Blockchain breakfast at Balthazar. So my partner at the time was working there, so there was a nice private room upstairs, and that was great. And then we'd sort of doing networking suppers, and so all of this alongside, the weekly bit in the newspaper. And then I suppose my sort of cool innovation was that on the share page of the newspaper there was this bit about that big, like a piece of A5, called the share square, which was like a sort of a almost like a dead end advertising slot that they used to either give away or or sell for modest amounts of money. Well, I thought, well, hang on a minute, and so with Bequant, who I was advising at the time, we created CryptoAM Daily in partnership with Bequant. And so suddenly we had, and it was literally an advertisement designed to look like it was part of the share page. So then suddenly everyone on a daily basis during the week, so I mean the double page spread once a week, but on a daily basis we had this wonderful little a bit of real estate that, I mean it was obviously newspaper, print, blah blah blah, so he was never really dynamic or live, but the point is that feeding into the mindset of the traditional financial audience, as I mentioned before, is say, okay, the price of Bitcoin is that, price of Ethereum is that, and then there would be other ones that were in line, and also this sort of, I included Cardano, so ADA, because during the research period of doing Vorium, one of the people that we'd come across said, look, if you're going to do anything in blockchain, you should take a look at this thing called Cardano. So, I mean, I met Charles Hoskinson ironically, at the Truman Brewery or somewhere like that. I think it was like mid-May, so it was even before I launched CryptoAM officially. I met, because I was like,
And for those of you who don't know, let's just say that
I need to build a blockchain, and again, something that you probably might remember is that none of these blockchain companies had a telephone number. They had a website, but there was no phone number.
yeah.
And I'm sort of one of I think it's clear that I got raging ADHD, but not that I've ever been diagnosed. But I was like, I'm like a dog with a bone, and I'm like, no one's picking up, no one's answering, no one's responding to me. So that's when I met Charles, and then got into this with the Cardano ecosystem quite early on. So, and I became involved in a number of projects there. I think probably the most visible and the one that I'm most proud of in terms of passion is World Mobile.
Yeah.
Wearing different hats, but check this one out. World Mobile. Actually, today, gosh, I mean, if you think about it, where are we now? 2025. It's almost like 7 years, it feels. Yeah, it is, isn't it? 7 years. 7 years, and World Mobile Chain, Dev Mainnet goes live today.
Wow, what a great day!
Yeah.
And I think and this for people watching, well, be later when I release this, is 5th of June 2025. So yeah, that's fascinating. And is that world, so for people that don't know about it, is that launching on Cardano? Or...
No. I mean, it's. Oh, I'm going. No. I mean, basically, the chain itself, for all sorts of different reasons, I mean, I'm not involved, as you know, in the day to day, but I'm the global ambassador, and I'm sort of, the founder. Mickey's like a brother from another mother, and he's just astonishing, like a tour de force of nature. But no, the to do sort of a telecom specific, chain. It requires a lot of transactions and all that kind of stuff. So I think ultimately the decision was made to do an L3 on base, and I'm not 100% sure about all the sort of technical details, but I mean, it's this is what we've been waiting for. And and having developed this sharing economy thing, it's just wonderful to see it exploding in the way that it is, and it's entirely down to the very tight knit, amazing team that have been founders day one and building. Yeah, exactly, building. So it's an astonishing testament to it's Emmanuel Gratch, it's Charles Barnett, it's Alan Omnet, it's Mickey Watkins. They are just this astonishing tight knit family, and I'm bursting with pride over what they've done. It's and there's no question that it is like the king of the deep in world. That's one of those new acronyms that's come up in
Deep in. I haven't heard that one yet.
Deep in.
No, I know.
Henry. The centralized physical infrastructure.
I mean, I
deep in.
So many acronyms come in and out. Well, not out, but they come in, and like it's still an emerging, even though obviously, from us being in it from the last 7 years, it's still kind of an emerging asset class and technology that.
I mean, everyone says you're still early. I mean, this made me laugh when I think the first edition of CryptoAM. I think the price of Bitcoin was about 3,600 or something.
I mean, I've many stories of that. I had a lot of BTC, did stupid things with it, traded it for stupid tokens.
Yeah, I think the very funny thing is, and it's funny, not funny, but everyone with the benefit of 2020 hindsight saying, "Shit, I just wish I'd stuck to Bitcoin."
So.
But there's a psychological thing to that, and that is that I mean, whether it's greed or whether it's something else or whether it's innovation or I don't know. I mean, people just go, they see. They see the meme stuff going, and there's 1,000x.
Yeah.
Well, Bitcoin's never going to do 1,000x. No, but it's got to do a slow and steady, and it's going to be.
And it's
solid,
also not even
liquid.
like, I mean, yes, slow and steady compared to other crypto, right? But not slow and steady compared to traditional markets. Just compare it to.
No, I know, but I mean,
but I think it is interesting because when I first kind of was interested in kind of the space, I was looking at it from a more technological point of view, and I was kind of like, Bitcoin to me was interesting. I understood the sort of argument for it, but I was kind of like, yeah, but this isn't going to disrupt much, in my opinion, at the time, and that was naive of me, really. But
yeah, but don't beat yourself up, because I think a lot of people. I mean, also don't forget, going back to. I mean, think about it. Go back to those days, and I mentioned fake Toshi, but I mean, there was I got so angry and frustrated with the sort of the childish nature and the tribalist nature, which still exists within this space. I mean, it's like, you guys, you're fresh out of the birthing canal, and you're having cock waving contests to say who's got the better this, better that, and mine's better than yours. And I mean, I don't know if you remember, I founded the London Blockchain Forum precisely to say, look, guys, you're not helping each other by screaming that you're better, and then you shit on other people's work. And it's one of the really, really depressing sides
It
of
is.
the industry. um I do feel a little bit
Hopefully,
like that's changing now. And I think that the administrative change in America certainly has
100%.
galvanized things
And and I think just
a
touching
lot,
on what you were saying,
a lot.
obviously, like now I feel like when I was interested in even like the 2021 bull run, it was still sort of technologically based, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Now it's just meme mania, right? How can
yeah.
we make a quick buck here? How can we make a quick buck there? And it's sad because there's a lot of projects that are, in my opinion, very, very undervalued because of what they're still building and doing. Um,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
mobile is a bloody marvelous example of that. I mean, it's again the FUD. I mean, I call them the FUD monkeys. The fear, uncertainty, and doubt. People love nothing more than moaning about projects whose price action's not doing the right thing and all that blah blah. And it just,
it
oh
is.
God, it's boring. It is so boring, and actually, and quite demoralizing for teams. And an
It is,
unnecessary
because if they've got the
distraction for the
capital they
most
need to
part.
build what they need to build and set out to build, then they don't need to. It doesn't matter what everything else is doing, and it's kind of a benefit and a curse at the same time, right? Like the benefit being you can raise capital quickly and it's a very liquid asset. So say you have an ICO, for example. Now, obviously, they
Yeah.
will take different forms, but they're not even called ICOs. ICOs aren't even really a thing. But let's just take that as an example. You raise the capital, then that those tokens become liquid straight away, so people sell and trade them, which is great because for an investor point of view, that's nice to be just liquid that quickly, right? And then you can invest in rotor.
It is. It is.
Yeah,
It is, and it isn't. And and I mean, look, I mean, when we talked at the before we started recording. I mean, everyone's like, this is the supposedly the bull run of all bull runs, but everyone is in serious amounts of pain at the moment because there's no real recycling of liquidity in the traditional manner. So everyone is asset rich, but cash completely and utterly screwed, because of course,
no one wants to sell it like a
I
minus
mean,
80%.
um, but also, I
True.
mean, everyone's got to
It's
eat.
true.
Everyone's got to live. And I mean, and I take things terribly personally. And I mean, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I had to exit some positions, and it really hurt, to do that, and it sort of, paints a negative picture as well, because you think, well, these guys were,
It
it's
is. It is.
frustrating. It's
And I
frustrating.
like,
But
compared to like traditional
it's
venture,
it.
right, where
Mm,
teams get the capital, but the investors can't trade their stocks. They just own stock in the company, and until they
yeah,
either go public or they do further raises, and sometimes when they do Series A or Series B, then previous investors can sell to new investors. But that's it. So it's very closed up, and it gives the teams the time to build, right?
yeah. But the thing about that, I mean, the other thing that really was really very apparent to me in the early days was the youthfulness, and it is still a very young industry. I mean, I remember, I mean, when I first met Stanley from Arve, it was still called East Land, and they had about $40,000 staked or something like that. Now look at him. I mean, he's. I'm so proud of that guy. I mean, he's done such a bang up job. I mean, and Aave is one of the shining lights of the DeFi space. I mean, I didn't understand. What do you mean you can get yields and this, that, and the other? I mean, it all seemed a bit cray to me. But it's wonderful to see all of these things developing.
But we
and
haven't really
succeeding.
had a sort of like what we usually use in the space of the term alt season this time around. It hasn't felt that way. Things
Well,
have
it
gone
hasn't,
up.
hasn't started yet. That's the point. I mean, and also venture capital's completely dried up.
Mm, it has.
Um, Nobody is writing checks, and then if they are, they're writing them on such ridiculous terms that founders would just say, I mean, somebody was talking to me about this yesterday, and apparently one of the terms and conditions is they got a 24-hour refund period.
What?
So that if they don't like it, they can take their money out.
Sure. What? 24 hours? Like what's going to
Yeah.
change in that 24 hours? Just wait today to
Well,
invest it.
if they don't like the launch and they get cold feet, they can just pull
Oh,
out them.
Jesus.
But
That's
no, what I was
ridiculous.
going to say is that the youthfulness and like people who've never had money suddenly getting huge truckloads of money, and what appears to be massive runway, and then of course the market crashed. Nobody had talked to them about treasury management. Nothing. All of these really who should have known better. Highly. I mean, people's fees went through the roof. People. How are we going to make money out of these naive little fuckers? And suddenly, they're having raised 180 million pounds or dollars or whatever the heck, and suddenly, after the crash, it was worth,
Well,
20%.
yeah. I mean, if you just because a lot of them raised in either ETH or Bitcoin, right? And
Yeah,
just
and
just
then never stabilized.
yeah. So they still held the ETH and the Bitcoin, and yeah, like we saw Bitcoin go from 21,000 to like 3K.
Yeah.
That happened in a very short space of time.
Well,
And
as I
so
said, I mean, when I first started, when the first publication of CryptoAM, I think it was 3,300, 3,600, something like that.
still a great buy. There, I remember I did.
Well, I mean, that again, with the benefit of all this hindsight, I mean,
Yeah.
it was really clear to me that at the time anyway, and I think it's even more clear to me now that Wall Street was seriously, seriously, seriously pissed off that they weren't involved in the first big jump. And if you remember, everyone in Wall Street was just saying it's a con, it's a
Mm.
Ponzi, smash, 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 smash. But what they were doing was trying to drive the price down so they could get their hands on the stuff. And look what's happened.
I mean,
It's
it's
now
just all
it's
institutional.
now almost completely and utterly controlled by the institutions.
Oh, absolutely, without a shadow. If you look at the last run up from when the last dip when we went down to just like 78k BTC, and just run back up, obviously went up to 110 and now it's at 104. That was not retail.
Checking your charts just then, Henry.
No, I'm just looking this way. Just remember it. This is what I do to like remember.
Yeah.
Um, but
It's either or as a terrible tell for poker.
speaking of which, I was playing that last night. But yeah,
Do you remember? Did you get involved in the crypto?
poker. Yeah, we saw each other a couple of times there in the crypto
Yeah.
poker. It was sad that never came.
I was the crypto champion of 2019.
You were. I
I
remember.
was, and I'd never played poker in my life. So
You were great.
I was known as All In Jimmy.
You were. And it was they were great times.
It was a heady day. It was of Jeff Hancock and Rob Gaskell. I think
Mm.
it organized the
It did.
crypto.
I think it was more Rob that did than Jeff, but Jeff was always
Yeah, but
there.
it ended up at the Hippodrome, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It was great.
Very
And
good.
they never did. It's basically stopped because of COVID, and then it never picked back up.
Yeah.
That was a bit sad. But yeah, anyway, going back to Bitcoin, like this last kind of run up, shall we say, it's just there's no. If you look at Google, there's not been like usually when you see a run up of Bitcoin, you see loads of people searching Google. There's not been that much press about the last run up.
Yeah.
So who's buying? It's treasuries, it's institutions, it's basically
Tether.
yeah. And there was another graph I saw that
All of those done astonishingly well.
oh, genius.
I
And
mean, I'm a huge, huge fan of that guy. I mean, I think I'm trying to remember when I first met him. He was in Paris. Really super guy. And to see the transformation of Tether from being a yeah, felt a little bit, and now it's just an astonishing
It is the stable
piece.
asset for the space.
Well, I think Circle have just launched their. Now, just want to say, right, yeah, 20 times oversubscribed. Dante's a super diet guy. But no, I mean, I think there's room. Look, if you have only one, that's bad. So, I mean, I think it's perfectly sensible.
True, true. And I think, it is the only true competitor to USDT is USDC. And they are probably the most open as well.
Yeah.
In terms
Well,
of what they do.
I think, I mean, in the last administration, it was so bloody, horrifically weaponizing everything against the industry. I mean, Circle were doing a very good job navigating. I mean, listen. Again, I'm not going to talk ill of anyone. I don't know to what extent there was lobbying and shenanigans, but I mean, even the whole Ripple thing. I mean, that's just taken. I mean, thank God it's all been sorted out now.
Exactly.
Craig exposes who he is, which is great. Which means Pete McCormack has, bounced back, and he's doing an amazing job with his Bedford Real or Real Bedford, working with the twins at Gemini. I mean, it's
That's
brilliant.
really cool. That's a really cool. I talked to someone about that yesterday.
Yeah.
And then the truly first crypto football club.
Yeah, but you know what? He's a bang up guy. I love Pete. He's just doing a cracking job. He always has. But I mean, if anyone needed to, deserved to be vindicated, it was him with the whole Craig Wrote bullshit.
Yeah. I know, honestly, like I got into it's been deleted now. He deleted a Twitter spat with him once as well. When they were like, obviously there was the fork of Bitcoin Cash, and then Bitcoin Cash forked again to Bitcoin SV, and I was just like, this is just damaging to the whole kind of like industry.
I called it the protocol wars, and it was completely and utterly ridiculous. And that's when, as I said, I think that's when I had set up the London Blockchain Forum. It was a sort of an idea. But I mean, going back, I guess, to the journey. I mean, you mentioned COVID. I mean, we did the first CryptoAM Awards on the 11th of March 2020, and that was the day that the pandemic was declared. I only had about 10 no-shows.
That's fair.
Had I been a week late,
it would just been dead.
No, I'd have been absolutely screwed, because everyone would want to. I mean, I don't know about whether they weren't taking their money back or not, but I mean, it could potentially have completely destroyed everything. But what it did do is it forced the newspaper online, and that actually was brilliant for CryptoAM. So I went nuts, and then brought on lots of content and all of that jazz. But the newspaper sadly never really survived the impact of COVID, and so it was acquired in where are we? We must be 2023.
Yeah, years ago.
Was it 2023?
I remember that's when you shift obviously
to
so
basically
well.
because CityAM then was acquired by a PLC, and I had a partnership that was handshake and all of that kind of stuff. What do you do with this? And so it was a natural time to and also actually the other thing is that even then crypto as a word was becoming very, very, very toxic, and I was really wanting to be a bit broader and bring in digital as a parcel. And it also coincided with a very old friend of mine, Loretta Joseph, actively working on the virtual asset model law for the Commonwealth itself. And I've been a huge fan of the Commonwealth especially post Brexit. It seemed to me completely logical that for the UK we should be aligning ourselves a lot more actively with the Commonwealth in terms of looking, from a sort of effectively like a trading situation. So I've always had this dream that there might be a Commonwealth-wide coin, right? Would I mean, it'd be like a trade currency coin or something like that. I mean,
just
again,
trade with each other. So, yeah, no. I mean, like that's kind of like the
it,
ideas that this should
it's
create.
2.7 billion population, 56 countries, 1.3 billion under the age of 30. So they're effectively digital natives, and so I just the digital Commonwealth, and so I got the domain sorted out, and I also now own the DCW.com, which is
Wow,
like a much shorter version, which is great.
that
So
must have cost you a pretty penny.
it was an investment, but I think one
Worth
that,
it.
yeah, I mean, I mean, originally the acronym that I used was TDC, but actually a lot of people started using DCW. And I quite like that because although Commonwealth is one word, it also Commonwealth, Digital Commonwealth, DCW. Nice. It's got a
Better ring to it.
purpose to it. So, I mean, my against the backdrop of all of the frustrations that we have in the United Kingdom about how we're handling the digital asset space, because we've watched us squander our advantage over the last 4 years. So I mean, it's so sad and so frustrating. Everyone leaving the country to go to pastures greener, whether that's Dubai. Now, of course, the gravity well over America is so strong that I think, I mean, even my friend Nikki from Luna and Phil Lord, her husband, are in New York at the moment, and apparently the atmosphere is palpable. So it's like, guys, just wake up and smell the coffee. Which is why I created the Digital Commonwealth. I've held 5 summits now at Mansion House, and Mansion House I chose specifically because it's the business emanated out of the streets of the City of London. Let's face it, all of the structures, everything that we enjoy today, all the sort of the regulatory frameworks and all that sort of stuff emanated out of London, and the ultimate mother of all coffee houses is Mansion House, the home of the Lord Mayor of London. So that's where we chose to host the sort of the Rolls-Royce event, which we've done. Going to be my 7th edition on the 7th of July. And
where can people find their tickets?
Ooh, good question. I'm sure we can provide you with a link. But it's a Luma link. But the Digital Commonwealth, thedigitalcommonwealth.com, rather, on the back of the thing. There you go.
Thank you.
The front. Or the DCW.com. Anyway, there'll be a ability to get tickets there. But I mean, we've got. I mean, this. I mean, there's always a theme of having government policymakers, legislators, industry bedfellows, clients, and all that kind of stuff. But so there's always that sort of constant theme of trying to maintain some sort of communications with the powers that be. But this has got a slightly an AI bent to it as well as other stuff. So I'm just doing the agenda now. I mean, it's pretty much locked. But it's a good one. I mean, we've got artificial intelligence at the crossroads, balancing progress with purpose. We've got Matt Hawkins, founder of Kudos, Janet Adams, Singularity Net.
Wow, really cool.
Over from Fetch AI, moderated by Colin Smith of AlphaWire. One of my favorite speakers in the space of legal, anyway, is James Ramsden, King's Counsel. He's doing a wonderful keynote on the shifting sands of geopolitics affecting the digital asset landscape.
Wow, that sounds very interesting talk.
This one's going to be fun. Quantum is coming of age. How will this impact AI and blockchain? At the moment, we've got Marta Pekaska of FIDL and John Gator. Bo something. Anyway, really good, but moderated by my old mate Eric Van der Clay at Eden Base, who also he founded. Do you remember Level 39? He
Yeah,
created Level. That's where Revolut started. Did that.
that's very cool.
And my mate Chris Holmes, Lord Holmes of Richmond, is doing a keynote. And then we've got, does UK policy help technological convergence of AI, blockchain, and digital assets? We've got Lord Holmes, Viscount Camrose, who's the Shadow Minister for Science, Innovation and Technology, Katie Ramsey, who's head of FinTech, Department of Business and Trade. And we've got Katie Harries from Coinbase, who also heads up their stand with Crypto UK. This one you'll like. We've got the world's first clearing, legal and regulatory framework is coming to Gibraltar. Will this become a blueprint for other jurisdictions to follow? So we've got James Ramsden again, but Randy Abernethy of Bullish, Paula Stengo, who's a former senior executive of Gibraltar Finance, all moderated by Albert Asola, who was the Minister for Finance in Gibraltar.
Wow.
So you've got some really good people. We've got Mika, Genius Act, FCA Rate Frameworks, rapidly solidifying who's getting it right. Sarah Green, Tom Duff Gordon, Christina Corner, who was used to be the editor-in-chief of Cointelegraph.
Really big.
At lunchtime, might have invited somebody quite high profile. We'll see if he turns up. Panel in the UK doing enough to make global hub. Is the UK doing enough to make it a global hub of digital asset custodians? So hopefully Brett from BitGo, Asmina Kashani from Zodiac Custody, John Hallahan from Fireblocks. And then we've got market makers as well. So we've got Willis Croft from Wintermute, Paul Howard from Winston, Alan Kunz from GSR, moderated by Anna Herrera of Bloomberg. Then we've got the usual legally speaking thing, and then we've got the importance of building and connecting communities and digital assets, science, tech, and Web3. I'm on that panel.
Hey.
Martin Massa from Tunnel Foundation, and Harry Horsfall from Flight 3, and Caitlin from Crypto Mondays, and Wesley's flying over from Malta, who's diplomat startup innovation funding in the government of Malta. So
Nice.
It's a bang up thing. So I'm very excited about that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of very, very interesting guests speaking.
Yeah,
or
I'm
being
gonna.
on the panel.
I would have kind of probably told the world about it now.
Yeah, plug it.
Weeks ago.
plug it. No, that's really cool. That's really, really interesting. And yeah, in terms of like next steps after the summit as well, the digital Commonwealth, like what's the kind of like ultimate goal of the digital Commonwealth?
We're going to look. I mean, there's no question that the summit's a very lost leader in a sense, because they are those sorts of things. So I mean, I've subsidized it as far as I can. So it definitely needs partners and sponsors. But I mean, obviously, it's not a charity, so we've got to figure out other ways to make revenue and all that kind of stuff. So I think one very interesting aspect is that we might be entering into the insurance arena. That could be quite cool. And also, I think, having mentioned the Commonwealth and having mentioned, the global nature of our industry, I think, and also, I mean, the DCW community is really a global one. So I think it'd be quite nice to look at seeing how we can sort of formalize the club structure a bit about it. And then also to, I'm going to call it probably, so we got the Mansion House Summit Series, which roots us in the city. But I think we'll probably do something along the lines of the Digital Commonwealth Pavilion series, which will be taking, in other words, we'll go to sort of the major events and set up shop.
Like set up
like a side event. They've been as a home from home for DCW members as well, and see if that doesn't help things as well. Yeah, I mean, I love doing I mean, it's always been me connecting the communities, as it were.
Yeah. And it's a
Again,
great community. Like, it's probably one of the best I'm involved with in the crypto space. That has to
and
be
I
said.
didn't pay you to say that.
No. No, but it's true. It's true because there's a lot of communities and lots of WhatsApp groups and lots of like Discord groups and things and Telegram groups
Yes.
where people connect. But like for kind of meeting the right people in the space that are serious, not time wasters, and meeting like-minded people, it's great. It has been great for years. You know, probably one of the best groups.
I mean, that's what I've tried to foster. I mean, I think the uniqueness of the DCW. I mean, you're referring to the WhatsApp group. I mean, it's I'm the only admin, so nobody can get in unless I've either met them or whatever, right?
Which is a great filter, right?
Well, it is to an extent. I mean, occasionally I get it wrong.
I mean, no, those are fun. I love watching them. I often post
The odd car crash. Yeah, but I mean, that's discourse is important, and if people can't, have a good old spat every now and then, as long as they're respectful, that's fine.
Yeah.
Exactly. When it was getting really loud, I set up Fight Club, so that was that was the pressure release. Pressure release there.
Sometimes that's more active than the other group.
Yeah. Well, I mean, certain people sometimes have to go on a naughty step, but
well, thank you very much, because you got to go in a couple of minutes, so I think it's a good time to kind of wrap up here. Thank you very much for your time, James. Really appreciate it.
It's been lovely to catch up with you, Henry. And
likewise.
I don't know if there's going to be any interest to anyone that we've what we've been talking about, but it is a snapshot. I mean, 7 years is gone.
Yeah,
isn't it?
It's crazy.
Let's forward to the next 7 years of building, creating.
Let's hopefully ride this
alt
season. That
finally retirement would be really lovely.
We'll be there, I'm sure. Cool, thank you, James. And if anyone wants to find you, where can they find you to follow you?
LinkedIn. I mean, I'm pretty visible. LinkedIn is easy. James Bowater and Digital Commonwealth. But also, if anyone, by the way, is interested in what World Mobile is doing, they should look at worldmobile.io, because that's a really special project.
That's cool. And I think people should check it out.